A teenager and her single dad move to a small town shortly before people start getting picked off one by one by a killer in a clown costume. This one is a later teen slasher with a few twists and turns, so join us as we discuss Clown in a Cornfield. Welcome everyone to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Tim.
Yeah. Trying to think of something clever to say, but I got nothing.
A simple hello would have sufficed, I think, you know.
Too boring, you know, I gotta shoot for the stars.
And fail spectacularly with a, I don't know what to say, oh, I guess I'll just crash and burn, continue with the show.
You know I don't like to be put on the spot.
Yeah, if only you could have predicted that you'd be introduced on the show at the start. I mean, not that I think you would even have to, like, have the experience, but, you know, 500, 600 plus episodes even would be enough of a hint that it's coming. This is a horror movie podcast, and we're here today during this Octoberthon 2025 to talk about...
You know what it was?
That's the time you jumped in. I'm literally about to say the title of the movie. But please, take the floor, Tim. Take the floor. What's on your mind?
So I recently watched, or I should say rewatched, No Country for Old Men. And I believe there's a part where, you know, the bad guy in that says friendo in that. And I was trying to remember what he said, because it's like, oh, like, you know, he says friendo, and then friendo's in this movie. So I was trying to think of like a joke to make between that's kind of bridging, you know, those two movies together. And I couldn't think of it in time, but I'll think of it. So you're interrupted at possibly the worst possible moment to tell me that you almost had something but didn't quite get there. Pretty much, yeah.
All right, we're here today to talk about Clown in a Cornfield, everyone. Mm-hmm. A movie that came out earlier this year. It was on the to-do list, and it wasn't actually planned for Octoberthon. Tim just messaged me and said, hey, I watched this. We should do it next. And I was like, all right, sure. So here we are. We're here to talk about Clown in a Cornfield, and we'll start spoiler-free, of course, as we always do. We'll give you a warning before we get into the spoilers, and if you're enjoying the show on YouTube, please do hit the like button. It helps us out a bunch. Give us 5 stars on the podcast app, all that stuff. And you can support us and help keep the show coming over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV or YouTube membership and get bonus stuff. But I'll tell you more about that at the end of the episode. You're just you're in like a mischievous mood tonight. Like like even as I was saying all that, there was like a smirk in your face towards the end. I'm like, what did I possibly say that was amusing to Timothy?
I was just thinking of various cookies and pies and whatnot.
Okay. Well, the premise of Clown in a Cornfield is that there's, well, a clown that comes out of the cornfield and it kills people in this small town, this small kind of beat up town that's been kind of a shithole for decades at this point. And a new doctor moves into the town with his teenage daughter. She's kind of the main character, and she makes some friends, but there's murders happening, and plot evolves from there, which we'll get into in spoilers. But that is the basic gist of it. Was this one you were like looking forward to, or was it more just, oh, it's there and it came out, and so I'll watch it? What was the vibe going in?
I guess a kind of a weird mixture of both. So this is based on a book, which I think it's actually like a trilogy now. But I'd gotten the first one because I'd heard, you know, people liked it, and it, you know, I think it does have like an evocative title. Like I like the bluntness of it. It's like Clown in a Cornfield. Like this is pretty much, you know, what you think it is. Like
Snakes on a plane.
Like, cool. Yeah, exactly. And honestly, I did not really care for the book. And sometimes it's hard for me to, or I don't read as many, like, you know, non-comic books these days. Like, I'll always have like something that I'm reading, but sometimes it'll take me like a month or two to get through a whole book just because of like time and attention span and stuff. And this was one that I was excited about. And then, and this is probably like, at least like year or two or however, when it first came out that I'd read it. But I kind of fell off of it, and I don't know, it just like lost my interest. So weirdly, even though I didn't like the book, I was kind of intrigued by the movie. Like, not that I thought it was necessarily going to be good, but I guess I was just curious, like, what they were going to do with it. Also, I thought it would probably be good for, this time of year, because it's like, it's, like a dumb slasher, and it's not necessarily Halloween-ish, but like, it's like, well, I mean, cornfields, it's kind of similar to, thinking of like autumn stuff, like, pumpkins and stuff in fields, and, and clown is like, it's a person in a costume. So I'm like, it's got the enough autumnal vibes that, I wanted to watch it around this season. So that was basically my, theory going in.
Your theory. There was brown leaves on the ground, which did suggest at least it was autumn. So, I mean, it didn't feel out of place setting-wise. I don't know when Founders Day is meant to take place. I don't know if they mentioned the date, but that's what it revolves around, is the town's Founders Day celebrations.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I love The Wicker Man, but come on, we should have been doing that in May.
Very good. Very good. I didn't really know anything about it. I think I saw a trailer, like maybe at the start of the year, that kind of thing. It's, I think the trailer didn't leave me with a particular strong like opinions or high hopes. It just kind of looked like it might be a little on the generic side. I mean, I don't think I heard anyone talk about it, so I don't know if my opinion or my expectations went up or down in any way. So I just kind of went in, best of expectations, but like not exactly high hopes or anything like that. Just kind of like, okay, let's see what they've got.
It's one of those weird ones where it's like, well, I didn't hear anyone talking about they loved it, but I also didn't hear anybody like hating on it. So, it's like, oh, I don't really know exactly what we're going into.
Well, go on then, Tim. What did you think of Clown in a Cornfield?
I'll give it a little bit of credit. I was on board for a little bit of the movie. Like, I
such fade. I was on board for like there was like a 5-minute period where I thought, oh, I'm into this.
Like, I mean, I didn't necessarily like ever think it was great or anything, and it was giving me like a little bit of like a CW vibe. Like, it was a bit more on like the dramatic side, but. It was kind of like easy enough. I was like, all right, these characters and stuff are feeling like a little generic and bland and whatever. But like, if we're just gonna get, them getting killed off in various ways and all this stuff, like, fine, I'll take it for just like, like a dumb slasher and try to have fun with it. But I don't know. As it was going on, I kind of felt like. I was just getting like kind of less into it, even though I guess it technically does get, more interesting probably around the halfway mark or so. But I don't know, like by the end I wasn't like super on board. It also, I don't know if you noticed this, but it felt like a bit more like not like it's like a super serious movie, but it felt like at some point like a switch gets flipped, and then like everyone is like making these one-liners and jokes, like I don't know, towards like the second half of the movie or so, which I'm like, did I just not notice this in the beginning? Because it's like, man, they're like really getting like I don't feel like super cheesy and one-linery as it goes on, which didn't really work for me. But I don't know, at the end of the day, like I don't think it was like the worst thing in the world, but I didn't love it or anything. It was just kind of like, all right, fine, whatever. Like, when it ended, I didn't really have much strong feelings. Yeah, I mean, I guess I would say like overall I didn't necessarily enjoy it, but I also don't think it's like the worst thing in the world. Like, it's fine for a one-time watch, but I don't really have much desire to probably like go back to it at any point,
Yeah, I think that it's. I don't know if even know if I'm more positive per se, but I guess I'm just not negative either because I think it's just perfectly fine. Like it's definitely very middling. I think that the main character Quinn, I think she's actually kind of likable. You know, like almost the nice thing I can say about the first half of the movie is I was thinking to myself, it would be very easy for these characters to be an annoying bunch of shits, and I think she at least kind of anchors. I think her dad's kind of likable. Like they're like even though she's doing like the teen stuff or complaining about certain things, it never came off as like whiny or whatever. It felt like a nice healthy amount of frustration that made them feel like characters and made you kind of get the relationship between them. Honestly, I think for me it's just a simple case of I kind of agree with the tone a little bit where it definitely did go into like more like self-referential humor in the back half. Like there's literally a moment where someone says, God, it's like we're in an old 80s slasher movie all of a sudden. And I'm like, oh God, why did you say that? Like you just took me out of the movie by saying that. It feels so forced. So some of the, I mean, for the most part, the humor didn't bother me, but I didn't really find it funny either. It was kind of leaving me in a like, well, it's fine, whatever. Like, I'm not offended by it. Like, it's whatever.
Right, yeah.
I think maybe the bigger thing is that the actual killings are just kind of like they're just violent enough that it's obviously got its R rating, but it's like nothing special or anything that I was ever excited to see.
Yeah, it's not super memorable. Like, no, I don't know if we did like a top 10 best kills of the year or whatever, it ain't making the list.
No, I don't think nothing in it would get close to making the list. So I the CW thing is like, I feel like that's just what it's going to feel like if you have teenagers like as the focus in this day and age. And I think they're fine enough as characters. Like there was some pitfalls that I thought they were going to go down that I was going to like get annoyed by because I'm like, oh, we're doing this trope, and they didn't quite do it. Like there was definitely a few moments where they didn't go down the path that I thought would have been annoying. So I was like, okay, I'm actually almost wanting to give you a little compliment that you didn't just do this thing that I was expecting. But it's somewhat faint praise because it's not like I was super in love with anything they were actually doing either. It's just kind of in this weird. I don't know. It's one of the most frustrating things to talk about when something's just kind of like inoffensively okay. And when I think of like the really bad movies we do, I'm like, yeah, I want to give it a little bit of credit for being at least somewhat pleasant and likable most of the time. Whereas like other movies are more tedious to get through because you hate all the characters and you're like, oh, I can't wait until this one shuts up by dying or whatever.
Yeah, like it probably doesn't sound like much of a compliment, but when I say it's watchable, like that's like a pretty good thing. Like considering the fact that there's so many things that we review that it's like, do not watch this. Like, you do not want this in your life.
It's competent, and
right, yeah.
We're in a world where we've watched a lot of things that are incompetent. So it's like it's faint praise, but it's don't get me wrong. That's not to say that this year's been bad for horror movies. There's actually been a lot of good horror movies this year, but like still. The scars of the really bad ones, right? Strangers Chapter 1, this is perfectly inoffensive, in the middle kind of movie that's not going to rock your world, it's not going to piss you off. And at the very least, it does have some subtext. I mean, arguably it gets a little bit out of the sub and into just the text at a certain point where they're really kind of spelling out to you what the themes of the movie are. But there is something there. They are talking about something, they're saying something, and that's perfectly, admirable. It feels like there's at least something there that's not just nothing but killings. And given where it goes in the back half, like some of it, it's not that I love where it went in the back half, but I appreciated that at least
it's doing something different.
It's doing something different, but it was also just like early on, I was like, this like the actual horror movie part of this is lame. So at least when it sort of revealed an extra element to it, I was like, oh well, at least it's not just a bad version of that. It's doing something else. So yeah, fair play.
I mean, I agree, but it's like you said, it's kind of tough because it's definitely not something that's like igniting a lot of passion. Like I'm not like, oh, like I love this
No.
part, I can't wait to talk about it, or like, man, this part was so stupid, I can't wait to rag on it. It's just kind of like, oh, yeah, fine, yeah, it's fine enough watch for this time of season.
Yep, it was competent and not much more, which is a weird thing to say, but hey, I mean, it got. I mean, there was like this one line that did make me laugh. So hey, it got one laugh out of me. Like, and it was an intentional laugh as well. To be fair, it wasn't like on like, oh, they did something stupid or something that looked bad and it made me laugh.
I wonder if it's the same thing that got me, because there was one joke in particular.
Oh wait, actually,
like, all right.
I tell a lie. I think there was kind of two lines that got at least. I mean, one was definitely more effective than the other, but there was two lines that got a reaction out of me. I'll say that. So we'll talk about that in spoilers. As far as like, I think the cast is fine. It's they're decent enough, like teen quote unquote actors.
I don't want to be mean, but the person who plays the kind of the main not Quinn, but I guess her love interest, I think his name was Chris, maybe.
Wait, hold on, who are you talking about? I missed part of that because I was letting the cat out.
Sorry. Like Quinn's love interest.
Oh, Cole?
Cole, yes. Okay. His dad, who's like been in a ton of stuff.
Oh, yeah, Kevin Durand, yeah.
Yeah, something about him kind of annoys me. I don't know. I don't know. I'm sorry to like be negative, but I think like everyone has those people that you're just like, I don't know what it is about this person's face or the way they talk or blah 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 whatever, but just something like when he's on screen, I don't know. I just I don't like it. And my apologies to Mr. Durand. I'm sure he's a perfectly fine human being. I mean, unless I don't know something comes out in the news, and in which case, I'll gladly take that back. But yeah, my dogs are barking. They agree, I guess.
I mean, that's fair. Like, I mean, there's definitely actors that I just have that reaction to, where I'm like, just whenever I see them, I don't know what it is, but for some reason their face annoys me, and there's nothing they can do about it. There's nothing I can do about it. We just have to accept it and continue with our lives, I guess. Yeah. Like, I mean, I do think the main girl is a solid lead. Like, I think she's doing a decent job at playing the main girl, who's kind of likable, a little bit rebellious, but down to earth enough. Like, I don't know what more you could have asked for there, really. Yeah, I guess the only other notable face in here is Will Sasso, who, I mean, I didn't remember his name until I looked at it, but I was like, oh, I know this guy. He's been in things. I couldn't tell you what off the top of my head, but I've definitely seen him in stuff before. Yeah,
he's a good character actor.
Yeah. But that's pretty much it. I mean, obviously the small town setting's always like good for a horror movie. I mean, if nothing else, but yeah, is it time for spoilers? I don't know how much more I've got to talk about without spoilers, to be honest. I mean, I guess like there's not really much to say about the design of the killer, because like a clown's a clown, right? There's nothing particularly like special about the design. They're just kind of banking on clown is creepy, so it works. And I will say, I don't think the cornfield element of it actually is like. It almost feels like a bit of a false title, because like there's a couple of scenes in a cornfield, but it doesn't really feel like the cornfield's that essential to what's going on.
No. I do think it does kind of betray the title a little bit, because I kind of mentioned before, like I like just how like blunt and simple the title is. Like it's like clown in a cornfield. I got it. Like let's go. And then it actually ends up being a bit more complicated than that.
I mean, I'm fine with it becoming more complicated because it's got more to do and to reveal, but like it just kind of felt like the cornfield itself never actually mattered. Like I thought at the very least there was going to be like I don't know, like we know the clown's in there and we have to go through it, and there is a little bit of stalking in a cornfield, don't get me wrong, but I thought it was going to be more of like every year the teenagers in this town dare like someone to go through the cornfield and like it's dangerous or something. I thought it was going to be more of a like an actual ID, like a more of a thing that was consistent, and instead it's just kind of, there just happens to be a cornfield next to this main location that leads to a couple of scenes in the cornfield. It's not like a fundamental part of the story by any stretch. So and it's not like the climax takes place in a cornfield. The cornfield's like in the middle of the movie, and then by the time you get to the end, it's we've forgotten the cornfield even exists. It doesn't matter anymore. So yeah, I guess that's a minor quibble. I don't really care that much. It's just more of a like you put it in the title, so it feels like it should be a bit more important than it actually is. But hey, it is what it is. I think we'll get into spoilers because I really don't know how much more we can really say without getting, because all the interesting stuff is what the movie turns out to do in its back half. But I guess I will say that it is a little. I'll say it's a little predictable, right? There's definitely a moment where I kind of called roughly like what was happening, and I think it doesn't, and not that the movie's trying to hide it a ton. Like I feel like it wants you to kind of guess and predict where it's going, but there's definitely a definitive moment. The second something happened, I went, "Oh, I think I understand exactly what's going on in this town now." So I'll say that before we get into the spoilies, but it's fine. It's perfectly okay and watchable. But don't say we recommended it either, because
like for me, it's on Shudder. So if you're trying to fill the month up with like a bunch of stuff you haven't seen before, and you got Shudder for the month, like it's a perfectly fine thing to throw on. If you've already seen all the other the big stuff and the classic stuff, like go ahead and throw it on. But yeah, maybe probably won't be amazed, but like, all right, that was a fine time for my evening.
We've seen worse from Shudder, because this is a Shudder movie. Like it's not just on Shudder. Like they
yeah.
I mean, they did put it out in theaters, but they are like their logos at the start of the movie. They like help fund this.
Yeah, trust me, because I've been we're a couple days into October now. So yeah, I've been trying to fill up my Octoberthon watching as much as I can. So I've been watching some random stuff on Shudder just to get stuff that I haven't seen before, and it's hasn't been going great.
Plunge in the depths. I mean, they've got a few decent movies though. I mean, I liked Christmas Bloody Christmas well enough, and
oh no, I mean I love Shudder. It's just, I mean, like any streaming service, it's like once you watch all the good stuff, it's pretty dicey what you have to go through.
Well, I think in general though, I don't really have high expectations for anything that's a quote unquote Shudder original, because I don't really think of them as good movie makers. They've got a couple of decent things, but that's about it. Whereas at the very least there was a time when other streaming services like had a reputation for making original content that was worth seeing, and then I'm looking at you, Netflix. Over time, that just eroded to the point where, there's one every 500 shows that might be worth watching, but the rest are just absolute trash. So, anywho. Spoilers for Clown in a Cornfield. You have been warned. We will get into the movie properly. So, I mean, the first half of the movie is pretty sort of typical stuff. It's like, teenage girl with dad, single dad. We find out the mother died of an overdose like the previous year. And they've moved to a new town, and right away it's like he's rapping to the song in the car. She's being like, "Dad, you're so old. This is from the 80s. You're as close to the 40s as I am to the 80s." And I did them like, 'cause she says do the math, and he's like, "Son of a bitch, you're right." And I was like, wait a minute, I don't know if that's true. I'm going to do the math in my head right here, right? So she's meant to be 17, right? Which means, assuming this is set in 2025, maybe you could argue it's 2024 because they shot it then. Regardless, it doesn't really matter, right? That means that she was born in what, 2008? Give or take, right? Which means she was 28 years from, well, technically she was only 18 years from the 80s, right? Because so the 80s ended 18 years ago, or you could argue it's been 28 years since the start of the 80s. So somewhere in the 18 to 28 year range, right? There's no way the dad was born like only, like, you're telling me he was born in around 1970? You're telling me he's like in his mid to late 50s right now? He's not, right?
No, I mean, I would say, probably late 30s, 40-ish.
Yeah, about there. 40, yeah, which would put him at being born around, well, I mean, basically just about a year or two before you, really.
Yeah, I mean, let's say if he was 40, then yeah, he would probably be just about a year older than me. Like, so that'd be about like 85.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure it's been a bit more than 28 years, or even 18 years, depending on which number you want to count. She's factually incorrect, and maybe I was just like trying to defend my own age a little bit by saying, no, that's bullshit. That doesn't like. Don't get me wrong. If you like, these types of comparisons do weird me out, and you can absolutely do it. You can point out the fact that the one I heard recently is that young people today who watch like repeats of Friends, it's kind of like people in our generation watching repeats of like something from like the 70s when we were kids. And I'm like, yeah, that's a little bit weird. That makes me feel kind of old. Sure. Like, you know, that's kind of a wild thing. Or the idea that like the Spice Girls is today to the teens what the Beatles was to our generation, and that they're the old band from like 30 years ago. Like, yeah, that's also kind of wild. Like, that's a weird thing. But 40s, that's World War II times. You're talking nonsense, right? He should have defended himself better.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm dying soon. I hate it, and I'm scared of my not immortality, my mortality. I wish I was immortal. No, I don't really, but I wish I had a bit more control over it. Somewhere in between mortal and immortal would be nice. Anyway.
Well, I mean, not me. I mean, I'm as down with the youth culture as I've ever been.
Yeah. Yeah. How much Roblox do you play, Tim?
Oh yeah, it's my game of choice. Yeah, can't get enough. I mean, I saw the Minecraft movie. I watched Bluey. I know what's going on in these kids' minds.
No, I'm being facetious here and making fun of the numbering being a bit off with her joke. But it does set up a main theme of the movie, which is the idea of the older generation and the younger generation. That's like what the movie's going to be talking about, and more specifically, the idea that the older generation doesn't like change and wants to keep in control, which represents the fact that baby boomers are still in control of everything and like, you know, enforce all of their ideas on everyone. It's, you know, it is touching on a lot of modern day political stuff. Not that it's anything new. This has always been a debate, is the idea of the old generation, like, you know, not letting the younger generation take over, or the new ideas blossom, or the, you know, things to advance and progress. You know, they want to keep things stagnant and keep the traditions and all that. That's very much what this movie ends up being about by the end. So this is a foreshadowing of that theme. So it's a perfectly fine thing to be there at the start of the movie. She's just wrong.
Can we kind of skip ahead to the joke that kind of got me? Because it is kind of
related to this?
To what yeah.
Okay, what was the joke?
Which, I mean, it's not like, you know, like the most unique thing or whatever, but when they are escaping to the house and like they go up to like call for help and they see the landline, but it's like a rotary, and like, how do we do this? Like, how does this work? I don't know, I just thought that was kind of funny, because like, oh yeah, like I remember using those phones, and it's like, oh yeah, a kid today would, I mean, first of all, they probably would just not even know, like, you know, possibly never have even used a landline itself. But then, yeah, the idea of like a rotary one would probably just be so foreign to them. So that gave me a little bit of a chuckle.
I'm going to upset you here, Tim, because I have never used a rotary phone.
Oh yeah, I mean, they're like, I don't know, like I mean, I guess even growing up, they weren't like super common. Like, I feel like, I don't know if like maybe our first house or maybe my grandma's house had them. Like, it's not like I used them a ton, but yeah, I think you'd probably at least be a little bit more aware of them than, you know,
oh,
a
sure.
teenager today. Yeah.
I mean, I know what they are, but I've never used one, so I've never actually went through the process of spinning the thing to like call a number. So I get it. Like, in theory, I know how to use one, but I've never actually done it. So I bet I'd screw it up if I tried to use one. But definitely in the 90s when I was a kid, like, yeah, there were kind of like, most people were transitioning to like cordless phones in the house that had buttons and stuff. So, you know, even in the 80s, I feel that's when the transition really happened, was the 80s. But there were still, obviously, some old people still had them lying around, which is probably where you encountered them in your youth. Oh
yeah, definitely. And now, like, we didn't even have a landline at all in our house. In our old one, we had one for a little bit, because like when we got our like internet subscription, like they must have just been dying to get rid of these landlines or something, because it was like, oh, like, you know, we'll take like money off your bill or whatever, like, or you get like you get some deal if you like at a landline or whatever. So like, all right, I guess if it's like cheaper for some reason, and then like maybe after like a day of just getting nothing but like telemarketing calls, we just like unplugged it and never used it again.
Oh, sure. I mean, yeah, I feel like landlines just come with internet for the most part now, even whether you want it or not, because you have to pay for the line rental effectively for your internet, so you may as well just have it there if or it just comes with. But yeah, I mean, there's no real need for it now.
And then when we moved and we had to cancel our internet subscription, we had to mail back our modem, but they were like, yeah, but you can keep all the phone stuff. Don't worry about that. Like, they just did not care.
That's funny. My internet provider does not, like, because every so often, like, oh, there's a new upgraded version of the router to send out. They never ask for the old one back. It's just waste. Like, just throw it, because we can't do anything with it. It's ancient tech now.
Oh, yeah.
It's useless. Anyway, now the two lines that got me that I kind of did get a chuckle out of. One is when they go into that same house and they see what they think is maybe a dead body, right? And like, oh, is he just meditating? No, I think he's dead. Or maybe he's just meditating. They do some other stuff, but then when the dead body, the clown gets up, she yells, the blonde girl yells out, "He wasn't meditating!" I actually thought that was a funny line. The one that actually got me, though, is earlier on in the movie. Well, it's a little bit into it, but there's a whole bit where the main character's dad has actually got her a car, because they'd already talked about how she wants a car because she can drive, and he's bought her like a kind of beat up old truck, but she's like excited about it. But when they get in the car, and they're in kind of a bad mood right now because she's in trouble, she's like, "Oh, I can't drive stick," which, by the way, as a non-American, it took me a long time to realize what driving stick meant. Because not because everyone drives automatic here, it's the opposite. Everyone drives manual, so there's no distinction. No one says drive stick because everyone drives stick, right? So it's not even like a thing that comes up. But and he's like, "Yeah, it was meant to be a bonding thing. I was going to teach you how to do it." And she's like, "Not right now." The payoff to that later on is when she's running from the killer and she gets into a little car and she like tries to like drive, but she can't, and she stalls it because she doesn't know how to put the thing into gear. She's like, "When your dad tries to bond with you to learn how to drive stick, you drive effing stick. Like, you do it." I don't know, her frustration and being annoyed that she didn't learn how to do it earlier, I thought was actually an amusing little, because it's a joke and it definitely is making it more lighthearted, but it's not like some meta joke. It's like, oh no, I had a chance earlier on to like have solved this problem and I didn't take it. So I got a little chuckle out of that. And maybe the performance of the actress was what made that funny. It was her own frustration at herself. So I don't know. Like those were the two jokes that got a little chuckle out of me. Everything else was just kind of shrug. Like, yeah, it's whatever. I didn't really feel much for a lot of it.
To be fair to it, like, I agree with that, but also most of the stuff, like, I wasn't groaning either. Like, it's not like there's a lot of jokes where I was like, "Oh, this is so lame." But yeah, it's not like most stuff was like, I was dying laughing or whatever.
Yeah, it's just kind of a shrug thing. I mean, the closest I got to groaning was the line about, "Oh, it's like we're in an 80s slasher movie." That was the one that went over a little bit of a line for me. But like, even right at the end, for example, is a bit where they like slam in with a car, they drive into like, we're into the spoilers, so one of the killers, and he just splats all over the windshield, and they do like a quiet moment with the windshield wipers, like just wipe away the blood, and all their faces inside the car are just in shock. Like, that's clearly supposed to be a funny tongue-in-cheek moment, and I was just that was like a shrug. That was just like, that's fine, whatever. Like, I don't really think it's funny, but like, I get what they're going for.
No, I totally get it. Yeah, it's just, it just kind of is what it is. Yeah, that's the other thing I was thinking, that, yeah, it's kind of funny with the title. It's very specific, like a clown in a cornfield, where it's like, actually, there are many clowns in this.
Yeah, because the first half of the movie is a lot of like the new girl Quinn goes to school, meets some friends, and there's a few things to set up here. The first thing I want to say though is when she's coming out of her house and this guy Rust shows up to offer to walk her to school because she's new in the neighborhood. First thing I want to say is that he has like a very kind of like deep manly voice, and I'm like, whoa, I get that you're technically in the age range that a lot of actors who play teenagers, but your voice is way too manly to be playing a teenager. It's like, "I'm Rust, I will take you to school." Like, all right. But he becomes a big thing later on in a way, but not in the way that I thought. I thought they were doing a thing here where he's like warning her against the weirdos in the town and he's trying to act nice. And I thought, oh, he's going to be this big red herring later, or he's going to like cause, there's going to be conflict when she gets friendly with the other characters who don't like him as much. That was one of the things that I kind of appreciated, is that it felt like it was setting up, okay, she ends up befriending a group of like kind of bullies, maybe. But they end up not being actual bullies per se. And the history between Cole, the guy that she ends up having kind of a love interest with, and Rust was a little bit different than I was expecting. I was kind of thinking, oh, it's going to be, oh, we used to be friends and then you turned on me, and like it was going to be a bunch of... Whereas it ended up actually being kind of a nice reveal later on what the actual history was. But so yeah, they set up that the teacher's a complete dick and gives out detention to Quinn, even though all she does is point out that she didn't know what class to go to and that's why she's late. But the kids clearly all hate him because they've like put a photo of him like photoshopped onto a muscly body on the projector screen, and then all the tests that he hands out are more photos of him, and they're like, oh, maybe it's your dating profile, sir. And I'm like, you know what? I'll give them credit here in that this might be insufferable how much of a piece of shit some of these students are, but the teacher's been so unlikable with the way he's just like, fine, you're all getting detention now, and like stuff that I'm like, you know what, at the very least, we're breaking even here, where I don't think that like they're like more awful than he is. Like they're at least coming out of this equally kind of in an awful place. So
yeah, that's
something, I guess. But the main thing it sets up though is that this group of friends with Cole as the kind of the leader, they make like little shorts for YouTube and stuff like that, where they like have a clown killer and they do like little short horror movies effectively, and it's kind of like a prank thing, but they get a lot of views, and that's something they set up here, and it's something they use a couple times in the first half of the movie. If anything, I was kind of surprised how, again, little this mattered in the back half. Like I really thought that, oh, they're going to like trick the killer later on by using one of their shorts, or like doing something that they did in a short, or they're going to figure something out because of something that's in one of their short, or something, right? But after the halfway point, once we get into the back half, we're really kind of in the chase everyone down mode. It doesn't really matter that they were doing that in the first half. It kind of just becomes... If anything, the movie just kind of uses it to say, hey, they're a young generation because they're making videos for social media, so they're youngins, and that's kind of mostly the extent of it. I thought they were going to use it a lot more in the back half, but, you know, they don't.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I just sound like an old man or whatever, but, like, I never liked when... I mean, this movie did actually make me feel kind of old, but I'm never, like, a big fan of, like, you know, oh, like, this character's whole deal is that they, like, you know, like to make YouTube videos, or they're trying to, like, be a social media thing, and I don't know, I just never find it, like, terribly interesting. I guess here, at least, it's being, like, a little different than, like, the normal, like, oh, this person is just, like, you know, doing, like, you know, live online stuff to get likes or whatever, but I don't know, still didn't do much for me.
I mean, I think it's just a case of like how it's used, because I think there's definitely stories to tell, because it is such a big part of modern society that it's, you know, inevitable that there's going to be stories about characters who do that kind of thing, and you could definitely do like a character drama about why someone feels compelled to try and do this, or what they're chasing online by trying to get clout or fame or money or whatever it is. But I think the reason why you're sort of dismissive of it is because most of the examples you've seen are X character in horror movie is podcaster or YouTuber, and it's just like a plot device for, you know, something to happen at some point, and that's kind of it.
Yeah, I mean, look at Ghostbusters, where the character is literally podcast.
Yeah, that's just them being lazy. Like, we're just going to call them podcast. It's like they put that down in the first draft because they couldn't think of a name, and then they just said, isn't it funny if we just keep calling them podcast? We'll just call them podcast. That'll be the character name. That's fine. So anyway, the first half of the movie, you know, like the running thing is basically she gets close to this group of friends, it gets her in trouble and detention, the dad's a little miffed at that, and then she ends up getting arrested with them when they go to the Founders Day parade, and the sheriff just blames this group for a fire that starts, even though it's very much not their fault. And like Quinn, the main character, gets thrown into the jail cell with them. They only get kept there for a little while. They get let out pretty quickly, but the dad's pissed when she gets out, of course. So and not in a way where he gets like super, like, he's a very likable dad the entire time. He's never like overly like aggressive or an asshole about it. He's clearly disappointed, because if your kid gets thrown in jail, you're going to be understandably on the miffed side and want to at least be stern about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think you always see where he's coming from, which is the point. Like, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, he's mad, but with very obvious reason. I guess this part also, again, like, I'm not like laughing out loud, but like a slight chuckle when they get, the sheriff or whatever comes to let them out. He's like, all right, you're free to go, and they all start walking out. And then like the one other like old guy that was in there with them starts walking out too. He's like, hey, not you. Like, I was like, all right, that's kind of funny.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think at the very least, I think the father-daughter relationship feels like kind of likable. It feels like, she can be honest with him to a point, even if there's definitely lines where, when I say lines, not lines of dialogue, but lines where if she goes past a certain point, he has to kind of go into dad mode and not listen to her. So, it feels nice enough. It doesn't feel frustrating to me in this case.
And I think it kind of helps too, where like the dad's actually a pretty like pivotal character. Like, it's not just one of those parents that disappears half the movie and then it comes back in the end and is like, oh, thank God you're okay. And I mean, not to get too far ahead, because we'll get there, but he actually probably has one of my like favorite, I guess, things to do in the movie, where
sure.
I think some of the stuff with him is actually like, oh, like this is pretty unique to a horror movie. I feel like.
Yeah. And obviously it fits into the idea that if, the older generation of the villains and stuff, he kind of represents, one of the older generation who will listen to his daughter ultimately and like want to look out for her, as opposed to like all the other, because, I mean, like we'll get to it in a minute here, but like the fact that most of the adults in the town are the villains, right? This is like, they're all dressed up as clowns, they're hunting the teenagers, because they're a bad crop and we can't have the young generation changing our ways, kind of thing. Led by Cole's dad, who's like, because he's like part of the family lineage who like owned the factory in the town that made the corn syrup that everyone loved. And the clown's their mascot. That's the whole history of everything that's going on. There is a couple of killings early on though, which I do like from a logical point of view. Wonder. I mean, I don't talk about the prologue, because there's a prologue in 1991 where a couple of teenagers get killed in the cornfield, which I thought was kind of a lame scene actually, because the way like it cut away from the clown so quickly. I'm like, if you're going to make this the introduction to your clown slasher villain, then give us one good shot of him. Don't just cut away so quickly that it feels like you're trying to hide it, but you're not, because we still kind of got a glimpse of him. I don't know. It felt kind of weird. Like, just show the clown. But there is a couple of kills after we introduced the characters and she spent a little bit of time with them. Two of the guys that are in the group do get killed, kind of like slasher movie style, where they're on their own. Notably, the black guy dies first. I don't know if that was an intentional choice they made, but I did notice it. But he just, he gets his throat slit and wrapped in a plastic wrap. The other guy, bit more memorable. He's like the gym bro type dude, and he's doing the weightlifting. And the clown has put a razor blade underneath like the weights, the bar, and he pushes the weights down, and it cuts his head off.
Yeah, I think it was more of like a, what do you call it, like a handsaw or something.
Yeah, but it's like he attached it to the weight, or at the very least he was holding it with the weight bar.
Right,
so
yeah.
It was like in sort of unison with that, and he pushed the weights down, and it just decapitates the guy's head.
Yeah, it becomes a point where it's like, he's like, the guy's so tired from his workout that he can't hold up the weights anymore. So when it's coming down, it's like almost like a guillotine or something. Yeah.
So and that was at least a fun idea. Again, it's kind of cut quite quickly, so you don't really get to enjoy the gore or anything too much, so it's not that notable in that sense. It definitely feels like not like you said CW, and I get why you said that. Obviously it's more of an R-rated thing than that, but it does feel like this is aimed a little bit more towards a younger audience, where it's like, we're not going to go super brutal. We're kind of making this for teenagers who are not like hardcore enough yet to enjoy like a super grotesque horror movie. It's kind of the vibe I was getting from some of this stuff. I think the reason why I said though that I have some questions about this though is Well, if the whole plan is that on Founders Day, all the adults in the town, or at least a big group of them, dress up in clowns as clown outfits and like hunt the kids they want to take out because they consider them to be the bad ones, right? If that's what they're doing, then why are they doing a couple of single kills leading up to it? Other than the fact that it's a horror movie and we want to spread out a couple of kills. Like if the whole thing is we're building up to this one day where we're going to do this big hunt and it's like a town ritual and we're all excited about it and we're all about traditions, why a couple of single kills leading up to it just so we can have a couple of horror scenes? I guess you could argue because it was two of the guys that were thinning the herd so that the stronger people in the group couldn't fight back. Maybe that's the argument, but I'm being a little generous with that, I think.
Sure. No, I mean, I think that's a completely valid point. I mean, honestly, they probably just didn't think about it too much. Because, I mean, it's an interesting enough idea what they're doing, but yeah, it doesn't feel like, completely well thought out. It does kind of make me laugh because I know you're not really familiar with this franchise, but essentially this is basically like a reverse Children of the Corn. Like, where it's just like, oh, the adults are going after the kids. So that kind of made me laugh.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen the first 3 of those, I think.
Oh, for some reason, I thought you hadn't seen any of them.
I mean, I don't remember them very well, but I definitely have seen the first couple. Now we'll get to the Children of the Corn franchise at some point. It's on the to-do list.
I think that'll be like, we'll have to catch up to a lot of other franchises first because that one is so long that like we really have to dedicate.
Oh yeah,
like
we've got other stuff to get through first. Yeah, for sure. Even though we've done a lot of the big ones already, but yeah. So yeah, I mean the whole thing builds up to like they're having a party. The kids are having a party out at this barn next to the cornfield. And that's where like the rest of the movie kind of takes place. Like the main character's been grounded because of the whole jail thing, but he, gets her to sneak out, and they go here, and they're having a good time. There's obviously there have been flirtations between her and Cole a couple of times where he seems like a nice enough guy. There is kind of a pivot here though, where after they've danced a little bit and she takes him off to the side to get with the smoochies and whatnot. He kind of like goes a little bit cold and says, "Let's slow down a little bit and go get a drink. That's not faff about." Actually, that was one of the moments that I kind of liked as well. That felt a bit more like real to me. Is when he first drops her off home after their first time hanging out, where she was with them and they scared her with the fake death thing. Is the dad like says, "Oh, you've been drinking," to her, and then he looks in at him and Cole just completely, he wasn't even trying to crack a joke or be a smart ass. He just says, "Oh, come on, let's be honest, sir. Everyone drinks when they're in high school." and he just sort of like glares at him, and then he's like, "But having said that, we'll never do it again."
That wasn't bad.
Yeah, I thought that was like an oddly like he was just trying to like speak to him on his level, and then like the dad's like, "Hey, we're not on the same level here, dipshit. You better start acting like you need to win my approval here."
And then obviously we'll find out why he's being more hesitant a little bit later. But I did like this scene where
I was just going to
it felt like
I was just going straight into that because like I think there's one notable payoff because obviously some killings happen and then they're hiding in a location. Rust eventually, who's sort of around at this point, shows up and kind of saves the day with a shotgun and actually puts one of the clowns down, which is also important for a second plot. But basically when him and Cole start talking about why they don't hang out anymore, and it's like, oh, like basically there's a moment where it becomes clear that this is like this is a romantic past they have, and they do like a little joke here where all the other characters, all the girls in the room are all watching and all go, they all just sort of get it at the same time. And it's like, oh, okay, that's what they were getting at with he always like turns girls down. It's because they were hinting that he was gay, but like because there was no hints before that moment where he basically turned her down during the kissing, because that was the first time that had happened. I don't think there was any hints before that he was gay. It was kind of like just from that moment on where it felt like they were starting to heavily imply it.
No, I don't think so. And then like you're saying, it seems like there's definitely like a lot of flirting going on between them, but I mean supposedly though, I mean that could make sense if he is not completely out and maybe a little bit confused about his identity at that moment. Maybe he does think that like oh, maybe I am supposed to like girls or something, and maybe it gets to a point where it's like, oh no, I'm starting to realize that this isn't what I want or something. So, I mean, I don't know. I guess like that could make sense if he's, if there's maybe not that many hints beforehand.
Well, no, I mean, I think it's maybe the opposite in a sense, where clearly something's happened with Russ where he's like gotten scared of his feelings, and it fits into the themes of the movie. If you think of the idea of like accepting like the gay community is more of a progressive thing, it's something the older generation don't want to do. I mean, if the older generation here represent all the people trying to take away gay rights and stuff like that, then it makes sense that the son of the guy in charge of all this stuff would feel that he has to hide it. And try and like go down the straight path, as it were, literally, I guess, in this case. But I think why it's an effective reveal to an extent. Again, it's a lukewarm thing where I'm not like blown away by it, but not only is there an okay amount of chemistry between him and Quinn, so you feel like he's the love interest for the main girl. I think the stuff with Russ, though, like Russ's introduction was basically, oh, I'm not that much of a redneck, but he talks about hunting, and it feels like he maybe is I'm not using redneck in a derogatory way, but just it feels like he's that type of country boy where he goes out hunting, and it feels like he's, obviously he equally just kind of feels like it's a surprise that this is what it was. It felt different than that. It felt like a subversion of expectations where, this was actually, they were romantically interested in each other, and Rust is actually the one who feels like he wasn't ashamed of what he was, and Cole's the one who's been kind of trying to like hide it and staying away from him and whatnot. And then obviously by the end of the movie, like he saves Cole again, they have their kiss, whatever, and it's like, so it's a pleasant enough part of it. Again, it's one of those things where I think everything I thought the romance stuff was going to lead to, which was, the girls seem a little bit bitchy about it, they're going to turn on her and be bullies. Like, it's going to be this thing where Rust is a red herring, but he's actually nice or whatever. It going down this path where it's actually, no, these two guys were actually into each other, and that's where the drama's coming from. And then, like, by the end, they're like kind of like willing to be there for each other, was actually a little bit wholesome in a way that I don't think I was expecting, because I expected it to just go down a couple of normal tropes. Instead, it kind of surprised me a little bit. Like, not enough that I'm like going to shower it with praise, but it was better than just the expected, standard. So, again, faint praise, but it is what it is.
Yeah, it does end up being kind of a sweet, romance between them. Because at first I was a little worried that like it was gonna be played for jokes or something. Because like, I think I forget, it's like when, I don't know if it's like when they first kind of start implying it or whatever, or maybe if it's like later on when they kiss or something. Like, I feel like the Quinn had like some line or something where she's like, "This is like the weirdest day or ever," or whatever. Where I was like, oh, I hope it's not like, oh, we're just doing this like for shock value, so the characters can be like, what? Can you believe that? But I think they actually do end up being like, sweeter and than that. And it's like, oh, like, yeah, these two actually, care for each other, like you were saying.
Yeah, I don't think Quinn's line was meant to be like poking fun at it. I think Quinn's line was like, oh, this has been such a confusing day. It's like, because this day started with her thinking she had like someone she was interested in, and it's ended in clowns trying to kill them, and the guy she was into is actually in a relationship with another guy. Like, I think that's just meant to be, it's just meant to be a comment that her days went very weird, like given where things started.
It totally pays off. It's just like, at first I was just like wondering if like, oh, they were going down that road where it's gonna be played more for laughs, but that makes more sense.
No, I mean, there is like a little laugh when like Rust kisses him and Cole pulls away, and he's like, oh, you still can't accept your feelings, and he's like, no, you smell like ass because you were in a fire. Like, that was like a decent, pleasant enough little like quip at the time. But it definitely does keep the tone feeling kind of light, which, depending on what you want from a horror movie, you might think, it's still a bit too lighthearted. Like, it still feels like, as much as characters are dying, like, a lot of the side characters do die in the movie, it does feel kind of light and like not that tense. Like, it's trying to be more playful, I guess. Because there's that moment in the cornfield once the killing start, And they do a whole thing where, like, at first they all think it's just those pranksters who make videos, like, this is not a real death, until Quinn's like, I can't find a pulse, and then they start freaking out. And they're playing with, like, a decapitated head. They think it's fake. Like, oh, he got a cast of his head made. Oh, there's corn syrup all over me. No, it's, and then they immediately freak out, and they end up running into the cornfield, the clown's chasing them, all that stuff. Once they get into that part of the movie, they do, like, a thing, and I remember this from the trailer. It's, like, the only thing I remember from the trailer is, like, the one girl, like, covers the other girl's mouth, and then the third girl covers the second girl's mouth so they don't make any noise. They try to be quiet, and then another hand comes in and covers Quinn's mouth, and it's one of the clowns, and you're like, and like, it's almost like a really silly, like, even the killer's, like, having fun with this, which can work. Like, I could see Art the Clown doing this and it being kind of a fun bit, but obviously this clown, like, character doesn't really have that, and especially since as soon as they get one shot and then another like 5 come out of the cornfield, and that's the moment where I went, it's all the adults, it's everyone we've met, it's the sheriff, it's the shitty teacher who hates them, also the waitress at the diner, like, all of these characters are the killers, and this is like a normal thing. And obviously the dad, Cole's dad is going to be one of them as well. It was very obvious. The second there was more than one clown, I'm like, I know what this is. This is all the adults in the town coming after them. It just fits with everything they've done up until this point. And and they don't really reveal it properly until much later, where finally the mask comes off and it's the sheriff and whatnot. But it's very clear for a long time that that's what's going on.
Oh yeah, and especially when, like, they run out into the cornfield, like, onto the road, and the sheriff, like, finds them and then immediately arrests Cole and then leaves everyone else there by themselves. It's like, he's obviously taking him because he's part of this or whatever. Yeah,
because there's 2 girls in the group other than Quinn who were already part of it. One dies in the cornfield when she just basically runs into, like, a chainsaw. like not on its own, there's a clown holding it, but, like, she basically just runs in and the clown impales her with the chainsaw and she dies. And then Quinn and the blonde end up at the house. We kind of talked about that. That's where the phone is, and the clown that might have been dead but wasn't. And they're freaking out about that. When she tries to drive away from that house, though, and she can't because she can't drive with the gear stick, she gets nabbed. And basically, the end of the movie, from their side, is she wakes up and the clowns are all here. And this is when the dad comes in and monologues, and they all take their masks off and all that. Before we get to that, though, we should go back and talk about what the dad's up to during this, because he wakes up at one point and is like, where's my daughter? And he's worried about her. He's driving around, but he ends up going to what's going to be his practice, like his doctor's office, and it's been broken into, and basically the clown that got shot earlier on has been brought here by a second clown, and the clown, like, holds him at knife and says, you're going to fix him up, like, get working on him. So he's been held under, like, gunpoint effectively to operate on an injured clown, and he's like, what is this? And he's like, hey, fix them or we'll kill your daughter. And he's like, where is she? So basically he ends up, like, I feel like the dad stays, like, obviously he's concerned about his daughter, but I will say, and this maybe adds to kind of the tone not feeling like tense enough and dark enough, is that the dad doesn't feel like, he still feels like he's keeping his cool comparatively well, given the fact that they've just threatened his daughter and they're holding him at knife point. There's clearly dangerous things happening, and he keeps so calm while he's, like, operating on this clown that's injured, and then ultimately tricks the other clown into, like, holding the defibrillator so he can grab the knife and stab him in the neck. Notably, when he stabs the clown in the neck, though, he's like, keep that in there, right? That's what's keeping you alive. If you take it out, you'll bleed out. And he doesn't listen to him, so he pulls it out and then he just bleeds to death. And then it's like, well, I warned you. And then he's like, okay. And so he grabs one of their walkie-talkies, and that's how he knows where to go. He listens to them because they're all talking in walkie-talkies. It's like a whole operation. So he ends up driving in to the climax to save the daughter, save Cole, who they're hanging by. Because I actually thought when the sheriff, like, arrested him, and they even say, why did they just arrest Cole? I was thinking, because his dad's behind this, but his dad doesn't want to kill his own son, so he wants to keep him safe. So it's like, we'll arrest him, keep him out of the pool, and all the other teenagers are all fair game. Turns out, no, he actually just wanted to set Cole up to be, like, the final sacrifice, so he's got him up with a noose, and he's like, my son's he's a bad seed, I'm going to get rid of him, this young generation are the worst of all, like, the hippies in the 60s were bad, but you youngins with your cat videos, we can't have that, that's too, like, the old generation must stay in charge, blah, 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 blah. So the movie, like, I appreciate that it's got like some subtext. I appreciate that it's saying something about society and it's getting a little political. However, it does like spell it out here where he just starts talking about, oh, we always have to keep the young generation in check, and you know, like it's so on the nose at a certain point where I don't want to give it that much praise either. But at least it's saying something.
No, I mean that's totally fair. Yeah, I like all the stuff with the dad because again, that just feels like okay, this is something I haven't really seen before. Like I can't think of many other horror movies where one of the characters is like forced to operate on the like one of the killers. So I did find that stuff pretty unique and interesting. And then again, like it makes the dad like an actual character instead of like a lot of these horror movies where the parents just like kind of totally oblivious or off doing their own thing. So I'll give it kudos to that. Yeah, I will say like the climax of the movie, I don't know, I just like again, I'm not saying like I hate it or anything, but I was feeling like a little bit checked out. Like it was kind of like, all right, I feel like we get the point and we're kind of just waiting for things to wrap up here.
Going through the motions a little bit. I mean, Cole, like, he ends up hanging, but the car that the dad drives in on sort of parks underneath him. So he's like standing on the car. The car kills like two of them, I think, two of the clowns. One of the woman gets impaled or whatever. So it ends up just being the dad who chases after Cole when he gets down, I think, and then like Quinn goes on the run from the sheriff who's chasing after her, and she ends up in like the room that has all these extra clown costumes that they use because they're at like their warehouse or whatever, and she ends up just like hiding in one of the clown outfits, and like the sheriff's like, oh, you think you're so smart, but he shoots the wrong one, and then she jumps out behind him, and she stole like a taser that he had that he was shocking her with when they were like, they were basically just torturing her a little bit while they were explaining their master plan, and like, ah ha ha, zap zap zap, little girl. She kills the sheriff by just shoving it in his mouth and just shocking him till he dies. So there's like smoke coming from his mouth, and it's an okay death, but I think this feels like a fun like death in the middle of a movie. It's kind of it's kind of the climax though, is the thing. Not even he's not the only one that dies at the end. Obviously, he's not the only villain, but it's like kind of like her big final moment when it felt like she's the final girl, and she's like, she almost gets like the henchman character as opposed to like being the one who finishes off the main villain kind of thing. But so it is what it is. That feels a little bit strange. But I mean, they basically just win. So it's actually her dad, Cole, and Rust. Rust, we should mention, he did a whole thing earlier on where it seemed like he might have sacrificed himself to blow up a barn to let the others get away. But you knew he was going to come back. We didn't see a body. It was very obvious. Right. They telegraphed it. He was going to show up and have a heroic save the day moment later on. And that's exactly what he had before him and Cole make with the smoochies. And that's like, hey, okay, everyone's like happy. We've solved the thing. There's the one teacher left who's a clown, and he's the one that gets run over by the car and splats all over the windshield. And of course, they pay off the whole dad teaching her how to drive with the gear stick by she has to drive because the dad's got an injured leg now, and he's like, no, I'll talk you through it. Put your foot down the clutch, blah 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 blah. And he teaches her in the final moment, and then tells her to run over the bad guy, and she does. So it's definitely played for like. Not, I mean, a little bit for laughs, but it's definitely going for more of a lighthearted, we're having fun here sort of tone, as opposed to we're trying to make a super, like, tense, serious horror movie where you're actually scared for the characters kind of thing. Which isn't inherently a bad thing, and I definitely would say... But, it's definitely not that far away from, say, a little bit of that radio silence kind of tone at times.
That's what, yeah.
And I'm a little indifferent to that, if not, like, negative to it. So... it definitely was like, okay, I appreciate kind of that you're doing the tone you want here, and it's fine for what it is, but I also was just a little bit disconnected from feeling anything as it was playing out, I guess.
Yeah, like on the one hand, I would probably say it's better and more clever writing than a lot of like, just the shitty generic stuff that just has like no character or whatever to it. But at the same time, yeah, it's not necessarily a vibe that I gel with. So it's in this kind of weird place where it's like, yeah, not necessarily my thing, but I do think it is better than other stuff we've seen. But yeah, it just doesn't like completely work on me.
It's sort of thing where, like, it's not so much that we can't have like a lighthearted, fun movie that I can really get into. It definitely can work for me. It needs to, I don't know, like, it has to like be more committed to it, like, or it has to, because like, I love, like, say, Bubba Hotep. Bubba Hotep's a silly horror movie.
That's funny because I was just thinking of that one. Yeah,
right. Like, but it's like going all in and the ideas, and it kind of almost turns it into a sweet thing. This like this idea of like keeping your one foot in kind of reality with the teen dynamic, but try to make it kind of like, I don't know, like there's a tone that it kind of straddles that it like, again, it's not the worst example of it by any means for me, but it definitely is there, and it's definitely where I was kind of like, that's okay, it's fine, but it felt a little bit toothless, I guess, for what I would maybe want. And I think maybe one of the other things that I would also say is that, and it makes sense given that it turns out to be the entire town dressing up as clowns, and there's tons of them, but there's not really any sort of mystique to the killer, which I think is the sort of thing where if you were going to have a slasher movie with a killer as the villain, you'd want there to be a little bit of a mystique, something that makes it feel like the clown is the star of the movie, and it never feels like that, even early on when you don't know there's more than one. And I guess it makes sense because when they all come out, it's like, oh, yeah, it's just because there's tons of them, it doesn't matter. But when you think of any other slasher villain, Michael Myers is the star of Halloween, Jason Voorhees is the star of Friday the 13th, Art the Clown is the star of Terrifier, and you get excited when you see him, and you don't get that here with the clown. He feels like just another generic villain, and then that kind of works because there's tons of them, and it's not just like, they're not going for that one, like, like almost supernatural, superimposing villain that everyone's going to remember and want to like dress up as Halloween or whatever. But it doesn't it makes them not that interesting as a killer, right? So along with the kills themselves and the gore not being that exciting, the killer himself, and under the idea that there is just one, doesn't have that much presence either. It's just kind of like a little generic. There's so many things in this movie that are operating at like a 5 or a 6 out of 10, right? Nothing's really in the gutter, nothing's like in that terrible range, but none of it is operating to a point where you're like, oh, this stands out as being particularly good. And maybe if just one thing was, like if the killer was super memorable, or the kills were super memorable, or the comedy and the wittiness of it was so good that you'd be like, yeah, that's what makes this movie stand out. But all of it's just kind of okay. Like all of it gets to an okay level, but never goes beyond that. So it's about as interesting as I can get. Anyway, the movie ends with her leaving for college, hugging her dad and her gay best friends goodbye, and she drives off. There's a clown Jack in the Box, which has been present a few of the crime or the kill scenes earlier on. She throws that out the window, and the movie ends with that popping out, cut to credits, blah blah blah. There you go. It's perfectly fine. I have not. Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's one of the tougher things to talk about because I'm not like super like enthusiastic and positive. I'm not angry at it, so I want to rip it to shreds. I'm just
right.
It's fine. It's okay. It's inoffensive.
No, I mean, I totally agree. Yeah, I definitely didn't love it, but yeah, I wouldn't say I was like, I like hated it or whatever. It's just kind of down the middle. Perfectly fine for a one-time watch, but then not much about it would really make me want to revisit it.
Yeah, it probably is. Like, I can imagine like a 13-year-old who's not seen much horror movies watching this as like one of the first ones they ever see, and probably thinking it's cool because like, it would be like a kind of an entry-level horror movie for someone of that age, but it's not that impressive to anyone who's seen a lot of horror movies, kind of thing.
No, definitely not. Yeah.
Because there's definitely like some mediocre horror movies from like the 90s and 80s that I saw when I was younger that I'm still fond of that probably aren't actually that good, but they kind of fit into that mold, and this might be that for some people because it's not terrible, and sometimes that's all you can ask for, I guess.
No, that's fine.
Yeah. All right, Tim, what were you rating Clown in a Cornfield, or Corn in a Clownfield?
Yeah, I mean, I'll probably just go like right down the middle and just give it the straight 5. Again, nothing offensively bad, but nothing overly great. It's perfectly fine, okay. A few chuckles here and there, like, you know, I guess the kills are okay. Like, for the most part, the performances were fine. But yeah, like you said, there's nothing there that's just really like elevating it to have like, any type of component that makes you think like, oh, like this part really got me excited. This one here is just like, yeah, it's just operating at this very kind of middle, okay, fine level.
Yeah, and I think for me, like, again, few exceptions aside, I think having a group of killers is never going to be as interesting as one killer. Like, it's always, there's less mystique to it. It just always feels like, oh, okay, so it's just a bunch of people in mass then. As silly as that might sound, like, does that mean anything? I think it kind of does. Like, it just feels less, I don't know, like, they're less of a force and they're more just a group of, like, normal people, so they're less imposing or I don't know. It feels just not as cool, I guess. Like, it feels just a little bit more mundane to me when it turns out to be like this.
I don't know, like, maybe it could have been something if, like, they just really went over the top with it and it was like, there's hundreds of them and it was like a siege movie where, they're constantly trying to break in and stuff. Because that's what... Because at first it seemed like there was like a decent amount coming out of the cornfield, but then it just kind of ends up like
5 or 6.
We just have, yeah. So I don't know. That might have been something, but I agree with you though. Like, it's always better to have like the singular villain as opposed to multiple. I mean, obviously there's exceptions, but for the most part, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's something about it just feels like it's almost like they think less is or more is more, but no, not really. Like, more, it'll make me feel bigger, it'll feel scarier because there's tons of people working against you, but it's less, I don't know, spooky, I guess. It's more just kind of I don't know. Anyway, I agree with the 5. It's honestly, it's very much the definition of the 5 out of 10 to me. There's some things that I kind of like and things that I think, oh, it did an okay job with this or making this likable or whatever. But equally, there's just like the kills aren't that interesting. The killer has no mystique, and sometimes the tone veered into like, oh, we're going to be too lighthearted because we don't want to actually make a super serious horror movie or even a serious horror movie, but like a, I don't know, like not my type of lighthearted tone anyway. Like, give me something that's more of an 80s slasher movie, I guess, than this for my lighthearted stuff. But there you go. That's Clown in a Cornfield. We squeezed that into the October Dawn, and we'll have another episode later this week, unless this is the late week episode. I don't actually know. But obviously, we've been working through Return of the Living Dead. Expect a sequel to that soon in the October Dawn and whatnot. As for anything else, of course, you can like, subscribe, but support us mainly via Patreon or YouTube membership and get access to the bonus episodes. There's a whole back catalogue of 60 plus episodes that are exclusive to the Patreon and the YouTube membership. You get even more streams most weeks, where it's like a segment where we'll do like a little top 5 or talk about like a bit of horror news that we think's interesting, or we reviewed that Friday the 13th short film that came out last month or so called Sweet Revenge. That was one even more streams. So there's just a variety of different little discussions that me and Tim do that are related to horror movies in some way. So if you like the idea of some bonus content, but mainly just want to support and help keep the show coming, you can do that with those. But yeah, thanks to everyone else who supports us. It is greatly appreciated. Thanks for everyone for joining us. But we will see you for more October goodness in a few days' time. Keep watching scary movies, and we will see you soon.